Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Today we'll be talking about the basics for factoring polynomials. So the first thing I want to know about today is determining if a linear binomial is a factor. So we have this thing called the factor theorem, which states for any polynomial, p of x, x minus a is a factor of p of x if and only if p of a equals 0. So long story short about that, what you're doing is you're taking whatever this number is, and you're taking the opposite of that, and plugging it in every time you see the variable. So for this particular one, the opposite is -1, so I plug in a -1 every time I see x. When I do this, I get 1 plus 3 plus 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Now it's a factor if and only if that equals 0. So if this is not 0, then this is not a factor. Now we're going to remember how to do GCFs. So when we're factoring, we always want to remember to take out the GCF first. So our GCF is the greatest common factor. That's the thing I can take out of every single term. So I look here, I have 6x to the 4th minus 12x to the 3rd plus 4x squared minus 18. So the first thing I notice is I don't have x's for all of them, so I can't take an x out. And that they're all even numbers, so I can divide them all by 2. So if you're not sure and you know they're all even, start by dividing by 2. So we're going to start by dividing by 2, and this is the 2 that I'm dividing out, so I pull that out front, and then I do 6 divided by 2 is 3, -12 divided by 2 is -6, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and -18 divided by 2 is -9. Now I have to recheck my numbers to see if there's anything else I can divide them all by. And I don't see any, so this means I factored out the correct GCF. Next, we're going to have a refresher about factoring by grouping. We did this back in Unit 7. So factoring by grouping, the first thing we want to try is factoring out a GCF. If possible. You're not always going to have a GCF, but in this particular case, we're going to take a look. I see x to the 3rd, x squared, x, no x, so I can't pull an x out. I see they're all even numbers, so again, let's start by dividing everything by 2. That's a good way to start. So I'm going to divide out that 2, and when I divide, I'm left with 1x to the 3rd minus 1x squared minus 25x plus 25. Okay, so I notoriously forget about my GCS. So I'm going to put this around it just to draw my attention to it so I remember to do that at the end. And what I notice I'm going to do is I'm going to group my first 2 and I'm going to group my last 2 terms. So that's what step 2 says. So I group my first 2, I group my last 2, and I'm going to put a plus in the middle just because I want to make sure I don't think I'm multiplying. If I leave nothing in here, I'm going to think I'm multiplying, and then I'll try to FOIL, and I don't want to do that. So my next step is to divide out your GCF again for each separate group. So I look at these 2, I notice they're both x's, and I know that if I have a 3rd power here and a 2nd power here, I can take out 2 of them. So when I take out 2 of them, I'm left with 1 on the inside here, and then a minus, and then if I take out both x squareds there, I have nothing left, but I forgot that I have a 1 in front of this, an implied 1. So that 1 would still be there. All right, we're over here now. -25x and 25. Well, off the bat, I can decide I can divide them both by 25 because they're the same number. But then I remember I don't want a negative liter, so I'm going to take out a negative 25, take out that negativity, and that leaves me with positive 1x and negative 1. So we're back to sames and our leftovers. So my sames are x minus 1. My leftovers are x squared minus 25. And I am not going to forget that I had a 2 for my GCF. I'm going to bring that all the way down into my answer. Now, I do have one disclaimer about this part right here, and that is that this can be broken down farther or factored more. But if we haven't worked on that in a while, which we haven't, we're in Unit 10 now, because we haven't worked on it in a while, I'm going to go over that kind of a question in class so you know how to break it down farther. So this can be broken down again, and that again is just this section right here. So we'll work on that in class. At this point, I would like you to pause your video and give these 3 a try. I'll come back in a minute and see how you did. All right, let's see how you did. The answers are now on your screen. Remember, you need to have all of your work shown to get your stamp in class. All right, this concludes our lesson. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.